Right, I'm here with Andrea Moore, social studies teacher at New Century Academy, and I wanted to ask her some questions relating to the separation of church and state.
Well, probably you already know that that phrase is not actually in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, but it's kind of an extrapolation of what is already there. I believe separation of church and state is supposed to be where no one religion is advanced or advocated or established over another in a public setting.
So how did we come up with that term then, separation of church and state?
It was just... I believe actually that it was Thomas Jefferson who coined the term, even though it's not in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. It's part of the freedom of religion in the First Amendment.
So where the First Amendment says that we have the freedom to speak, and also the government's not supposed to set up religions, but they're not supposed to interfere with the exercise of religion either.
They're not supposed to establish a religion one over another or a state religion based upon what they had come from in England. And they're also not supposed to prohibit any free expression of a religion.
So that's where some of those gray areas come in our public settings then.
Yes.
And get kind of different ideas about how that's supposed to work out.
Right.
So how is it supposed to work out in the schools especially?
From what I've been taught, a child, a student, has many more rights in expressing their religious beliefs than, say, an adult or a teacher who's seen as someone of influence or power over a child. So children or students can organize, prayer groups or activities, can speak about their religion, not obviously if it's in the middle of class disrupting math class, and preaching from the top of a desk, but they can speak about it in, the lunchroom, in hallways, etc. And of course they can give their opinion in any class where the material is brought up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
They're allowed to express their own personal beliefs during a class time?
Yes, definitely. And unless they would ever become disruptive or rude or harassing to another student, but they're definitely allowed to speak their opinion. They're supposed to be anyway.
Okay. Are they allowed beyond that to pass out materials based on their beliefs, do you know?
I don't know if they can literally pass out materials or leaflets or flyers. I know that they can post things and organize like a prayer group or different things before or after school, but I'm not sure if they're allowed to pass anything out at school or in the hallway, and I'm not aware of a court case where that's been done and then challenged, so I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
So you talk about them being allowed to set up prayer groups and things like that. Is that where we're talking about like equal access laws type of thing?
Yes, and as even if they would be asked to go and set up a prayer group at the library or another public setting, yes, that they and many other groups are supposed to be allowed, whether religious or not. Technically, I suppose if a group of Satan worshipers wanted to use a public building for their meeting, they technically would be allowed to do so.
Especially if they're allowing it for the use of other religions or other groups like that. Okay.
Right.
What about schools celebrating holidays that kind of have religious backgrounds like Christmas? Is that an okay thing?
From what I've heard, it is much safer to call it a holiday party.
Okay.
And to celebrate a season or winter, Thanksgiving is okay. However, if it really depends on who's at the school. If there is a child or a family at the school that wants to challenge the Christmas party or whatever, if it's called that, then there could end up being real consequences for the school.
Especially if somebody challenges it.
Right.
So sometimes it's up to the community, sometimes how that works out. Okay. What about prayer in school? This has been kind of a hot topic sometimes in our schools about students being allowed to pray in school, or Are they allowed to pray in school?
Yes, students are allowed to pray in school. Again, it should not disrupt class, you know, and if it's student-led, a student-led prayer is fine. A teacher telling a student, why don't you go and pray now for this, or of course a teacher praying would not be acceptable, either one of those.
What about prayer at like public school gatherings? Like, I know there's been some issues like at football games where students wanted to have a prayer before a football game, and some parents weren't happy with that. What do you think about that?
Again, if it's student-led prayer, they can do that up to a certain extent, but I believe there's been court cases where when it goes over the PA system,
right,
where everyone is, I hate to use the word, but forced to hear it, that's when they get in trouble. So they can say a moment of silence, you know, things like that, but specifically the Supreme Court has struck down time for silent prayer. They've struck that down when that's been allowed. They have to change it to like moment of silence or something like that.
Saying prayer specifically endorses religion, they said. Okay, interesting. What about public schools having religious materials in their libraries, like Bibles and things like that?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, the Bible and other documents that were, you know, kind of written around the same time as the Bible, like I think Josephus and some other writers who wrote about Jesus Christ and might not have believed he was the Messiah, but wrote about him. Anything like that is actually considered either literary or historical text, and so if you're studying them for the if you're studying the Bible for the literary content, or if you're studying the Bible as well as like in a religious class where you're studying the Quran and other documents to compare religions, like a comparative religions class, then it's fine. And to have it in the library, have them in the library is fine.
Interesting. Our school, I know, has some in there, but I know some other schools I've heard don't carry them in there because they're concerned about that. So.
As long as you're not forcing kids to read it.
Yeah.
Although you can almost force kids to read it if you're doing a comparative religions class.
Yeah. I suppose I could drum up some controversy.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with this topic in your teaching, years of teaching at all, or any issues or anything?
I have had some experience. I know that as a teacher, you know, obviously I'm not supposed to talk about my religion just freely, you know, in class, but I have been told that if a child comes to me and asks me specifically on a one-on-one basis, that I am allowed to, you know, answer and share with them what I believe. And I believe that's been tested out in court on a one-on-one basis.
If the student initiates the
right,
conversation.
Exactly, student initiated. As far as religions, when I do talk about different things in class, I am careful to say, as far as the Christian beliefs that this country, you know, that these particular men wrote this, I will use quotes from the Founding Fathers. You know, I will not just say something in general. I try to be very specific so kids know where it's coming from. I know I had a student who music was played to him before a test that was supposed to relax him, but it was 100% religious in nature, and he was very upset about that. And I believe that if his parents would have wanted to push that, he would have won.
So even playing religious music
right
at school.
In a class to relax kids for a test, I mean, probably helped a lot of kids, but
yeah,
you can't do it, I guess.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts or comments on this topic that you can think of that you would share?
It's a tricky topic for me because in general I think, you know, that what would Jesus do in a school? You would answer the questions that school policy says anyway. Be kind to other people, you know, don't swear, don't do drugs, don't whatever. So it's kind of following some of the same morals as what Christianity would follow.
Okay, well thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.